Hello, everyone. Welcome to our National Association of Workforce Boards virtual presentation on the ABCs of business engagement, how we are leveraging technology and partnerships across our vast LA County region to reach unique populations and employ our workers with the biggest barriers to employment. I'm going to go ahead and share our presentation with you. This will be a 1-hour presentation where we talk with several of our workforce leaders across the Southern California region, and then open it up to a roundtable discussion. Each presenter will be going through their slides to get their point across, and then we will stop screen sharing at that point. So I'm going to go ahead and get us started. Okay. All right, so again, we're here on behalf of the County of Los Angeles, the ABCs of Business Engagement, and wanted to welcome all of our panelists here today. Abraham Jenkins from Launchpad, he's their chief enthusiasm officer, CEO.
Oh, that's better, yeah.
Yeah, we like that. Jessica Koo Kim, who's our Senior Director of Workforce Development from the LA County Economic Development Corporation. Dr. Luis Barrera Castañon, sorry if I pronounced that wrong, who's our Senior Director of Strategic Operations at Goodwill of Southern California. We also have Dr. Enrique Medina, who's the Director of Career Readiness in the San Antonio Regional Occupation Program for Pomona Unified School District, and Richard Cesar, who's the Manager of Public Policy and Program Development for the County of LA Workforce Department. Just for all of you joining us from other jurisdictions across the nation, wanted to give you a brief overview of what we're dealing with in LA County and why our partnership that we forged across these agencies is so unique. So LA County actually has over 10 million residents. So we are the most populous county, or one of the most populous counties in the nation. If we were a state, we would be larger than over half of our states in the country. And we actually have 7 unique workforce development boards across our region. So all of those 7 workforce development boards collaborate with each other. We have our Department of Public Social Services serving the entire county with what's often known as TANF, Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, SNAP, Medi-Cal, etc. Of course, 2 child welfare departments, 21 community colleges, 7 universities, 30 plus private nonprofit colleges, and of course, hundreds, if not thousands, of community-based organization partners who perform the difficult work of case management and wraparound support services. So all of that is to say that clearly we know that leveraging partnerships and streamlining operations is key for this region. And we're going to talk about how we've actually been able to grow industry by forging some of those partnerships and using technology and data to make informed decisions to employ our skilled workforce. Really quickly, we also would not be appropriate or timely if we didn't address the economic impact that we've experienced in our region due to COVID-19. And I think that clearly, we're coming to you today in a virtual format, really because we're addressing the need to socially distance in light of COVID-19. So how has that impacted our business community? Well, we have at least 139,000 businesses in our industries with the highest risk of job losses. That's not to say there aren't thousands of other businesses experiencing job losses as well, but we're talking about food, leisure, hospitality. All of those businesses have been severely impacted in our region. Leisure and hospitality losing at least 20,000 jobs month over month from March to April. Biggest drop since 1990. And of course, since our stay-at-home order was issued, we've had over 4.0 million unemployment insurance claims filed, hundreds of thousands of pandemic unemployment insurance claims. And right now we're seeing about a quarter of our workforce in the region who is currently unemployed as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. So vast, far-reaching impact means that the information superhighway is moving quickly. We need to be able to work together, and we need to be able to reach our businesses to help avoid additional layoffs. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Abraham Jenkins, who's our founder and CEO of Launchpad, to really address how we are targeting businesses in an intelligent way, how we are maintaining our relationships, and why that's even more important in light of COVID, that we are doing that. So AJ, pleased to welcome you to our program. Take it away.
Hey, Carolyn, thank you very much for including me on this panel. Super excited. Thank you for your leadership and the work that you guys have been doing in LA County, which has really been tremendous. And it's great to see everybody, clients and partners that we've worked with in LA. So, thanks for that great introduction of painting the picture of what's going on. In Los Angeles, LA County being such a diverse area, it really is representative of what's going on throughout the country in workforce development. So I want to share with you a little bit about how Launchpad, as a technology company, how we are partnering not just with LA County and the partners here, Goodwill, LA EDC, but also across the country. What are other agencies doing to really be innovative during these times and engage with their business community? So a little bit about me. So I come from the workforce development and business services industry. I started Launchpad back in 2012, really with a mission to figure out how we can improve the way we're engaging either the business or job seeker customer leveraging technology. I first started out actually in the private sector, in private sector employment and staffing, and then transitioned into consulting and workforce development. And I think one of the things that we learned in this transition back in 2012, 2013 was that workforce development agencies really didn't take advantage and leverage technology. So we've been on a mission to really help organizations modernize that. I think it's been tremendous to work with LA County, the city of LA. They have really been leaders in this space, and how do you become more innovative in engaging the business community. So today I want to share with you a little bit about the common challenges that we see, as well as best practices. Just to give you a high level, Launchpad, we are one of the leading platforms for workforce development nationally. We started in 2012 here in LA. I have to thank them for being a wonderful partner and customer. We've got over 120 organizations across the country utilizing our platform to engage with businesses. But I think what's really great is that we're really seeing how organizations are using technology to improve that experience for the business, right? And at the end of the day, if we can help that business in providing them these workforce services, they can help hire more people in the community. Next slide. So I want to talk a little bit about the common challenges that we're seeing, and I also want to bring it into perspective with COVID-19, because I think this journey that we've been on to modernize workforce development over the past 6 or 7 years, literally as a result of COVID-19, saw a paradigm shift overnight, right? So I want to talk about these common challenges, but also put into context that these challenges are becoming more evident and more dire because of COVID-19. The first one is lack of coordination or no coordination amongst workforce development agencies. We see this across the country, especially when, here in LA County, when we were partnering with Carolyn and her team, or Robert Steins at the city, and Jessica with LA EDC, we saw that you have these tremendous organizations that are doing a great job in the community, but they're overlapping, right? They're engaging with the same businesses at the same time, and there really isn't coordination. What has been exciting to see is that the organizations, like Los Angeles, and also I want to give a shout out to the state of Wisconsin and some of our clients in Detroit and San Francisco. They all saw the need to start to coordinate efforts regionally. The second challenge is data silos. Most agencies right now still utilize Excel spreadsheets to track business engagement, right? So you're trying to help businesses that have all gone virtual, right? They're all working from home, or they have a small crew, and you're trying to track that on an Excel spreadsheet. You can't have an impact that way. And so this is the number 2 biggest challenge, is getting that data and accessing that information. The first 2 really lead to the third one, which is employer fatigue. When I started doing business services consulting, and before I started Launchpad, we would actually go out and meet with businesses, and they would tell me how many times a different workforce agency would actually call on them and say, hey, we provide job training, we provide apprenticeships, we provide, we're the community college. What happens is they get employer fatigue, right? Because there is no alignment. You're not tracking, that activity with those businesses. And so those businesses who already have low adoption and low engagement with the workforce system, they get turned off, right? They don't want to talk to you. They're frustrated. So that's the third biggest challenge. And then I think the number one thing I actually hear from workforce agencies at the end of the day, number one, biggest problem is not having access to data, right? How many businesses are you serving in your region? How are you serving them? What are their needs? And I'll tell you right now, like, this is critical. We've got thousands and thousands of businesses that are on the cusp of going out of business, right? And if you're not engaged in talking to them and looking at that data, you can't adjust your programs and service them. I think LA County is, and we'll talk about this here in a moment, they did some amazing things with their rapid response and with their business assistance grant programs to really use data to find out where the hot spots were for these businesses and then engage them. So, lack of reporting is the number 4, but really number 1 biggest challenge. Next slide. So I want to talk a little bit about best practices, and this is just, this is a compilation of what we've seen across the country when we survey different workforce agencies, when we talk to our partners. I think the first step, and this is what Los Angeles has been doing for some time, state of Wisconsin has done this, they've been really successful at this, is alignment. As workforce agencies have to develop their regional plan, right? And you have to start to put together, you have a regional economy. You look at California, California is not one economy. We have, and Carolyn probably knows the numbers on this, but we have dozens of economies, right? LA County probably has multiple economies just in and of itself. So you have to have alignment around your partners. So if it's the WIOA partners, right? Your community college, you got to bring them together and have communication. And especially now, as everybody's doing, working remotely, we got to bring people together in forums like this. You can just put up a Zoom call or, a Hangout, bring people together and say, hey, how do we want to serve our region? I think the second part, which is the second part is really where most folks actually don't get to, right? Because a lot of folks get together, they have their meetings, they have their planning, but they don't take the next step, which is really starting to operationalize that. And that is coordinating the data that you're going to track in that region. And this is really easy, guys. It's really the fundamental 101 of business engagement, is you get your team together and you look at what is the data that we want to track regionally, right? Who are the businesses? What are the industries that we want to track? What are the skills that they're looking for? And who are the contacts, right? It's basic information, but what we see is that the workforce agencies all have separate sets of data. They call a business something else, they call a contact something else, they call a job something else, right? They have 4 or 5 different names for each of these things. And it makes it extremely difficult to have, to really serve your region. Once you've got that data together, then the third step is to put it all into a unified system. And this is what LA County really excited about the work we're doing with them, unifying that business services data, not just with your WIOA partners, but with, SNAP or with, your community college partners or your nonprofit partners, getting them all to, bring that data into a single system so that you can now start to engage those businesses at the same time. And then the final step of this is user adoption, right? This is like what we call the last mile. Once you've got everybody into the same system, you can't just like walk away and say, okay, we've done our job, right? You have to start looking at user adoption. You've got to say, are our business services teams actually entering data into it? What types of data about that business community are we getting, right? Once you start to see the dashboards, once you start to see that data, it like opens up your eyes. And I'm not here to sell software. It can be any technology. There's a lot of different tools out there, right? But at the end of the day, once you can start seeing what's happening with your business services teams and how they're engaging businesses, makes a whole difference. And you can get there very easily. So the fourth area is really getting users to adopt the system, and that happens through training, and that happens through best practices, and just making it a part of your organization.
And I just have to say that we absolutely would support that. I mean, I think that when we started with Launchpad a little over a year ago, we had 0 business accounts in our customer relationship management system, and we've been able to grow that now we actually have over 14,000 unique business contacts in our system over the last year. And really, that's a credit to your team who came in, month after month and said, look, who's not adopting? What do we need to do? And how do we train? So absolutely, you're only as good as the people inputting the data. Anyways,
so
yeah.
This is, no, thanks for adding that. And yeah, user adoption, I mean, that's number one there. But so I think this was an important slide about COVID-19, right? Because we talked about earlier, our world literally changed, within a few weeks, right? Workforce development went from having, AJCC job centers, calling on businesses in person. Everything was, I don't want to say hunky-dory, but everything was, this old school way of doing business, and then overnight it changed. And I can tell you this, it's not going back. I talk to business owners. I'm an entrepreneur. I talk to other, business owners. They are not going back to the old way. They're not going back into their offices. Twitter announced they're not going back, Slack. Yes, you're going to have manufacturing, but the other thing that's going to happen is you're going to see automation I believe, is going to be the second wave of disruption, that you're going to start to see a lot of jobs right now being eliminated by automation. So this slide about impact, LA County, obviously because they were using Launchpad, they were able to respond very quickly to the needs of the business community. And there are really 2 case studies we want to talk about. And Carolyn, feel free to chime in, and hopefully I'm not going too long. I'll make it quick. Number one was you set up a disaster help center, which I think was tremendous. And they leveraged Launchpad to basically intake the businesses and the employers or employees who are being impacted. And literally within 48 hours, they were able to start seeing this data coming in week by week to say who's being impacted, what are the industries being impacted, and who are the employees that are being impacted, right? So they're getting this data about their community in real time. The second thing that we were able to work with them and help them with was this business assistance grant program, which again, Carolyn, I'll let you speak to both of these, but they received a grant, I believe $500,000 from the state to assist these businesses who had been impacted. And because they had this data, they were now able to target these businesses and provide basically an online registration for businesses to go online, sign up and apply and basically apply for these grants. And then the county was able to manage the distribution of these grants out to these businesses, hopefully to save jobs, save businesses, save the economy. So this is how technology is helping, one of the largest workforce regions in the country, during COVID-19. Carolyn, hopefully I represented you guys correctly, but I'd love for you to share your thoughts on this as well.
Well, I'm going to actually save it for Richard, because Richard administered our entire employer assistance grant fund. And so we will get to that, but 100% agree with everything that you stated. And honestly, without casting aspersions on any other software company, there's absolutely no one else I would have felt comfortable with in the course of literally a day or two building an entire platform for us and doing it quickly, and meeting our needs and meeting our business's needs, quite frankly. So thank you for all of your work on that. Without going to Jessica, was there anything final that you wanted to say, or we'll get to in some questions perhaps?
No, I think I probably took more time, so.
No, you're fine. We're information sharing. All right, so with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Jessica Kim, who's our Senior Director of Workforce Development at LAEDC, to talk a little bit about how they, as an economic development corporation, have leveraged technology and then pivoted during COVID. Jessica?
Yeah, thanks, Carolyn. And EJ and Carolyn couldn't agree with you both more. To contend with the labor market challenges brought on by this great COVID-19 economic transformation to a globotics economy, California's talent development and education systems and institutions must and have begun to prepare themselves strategically in a way that reconfigures their structures, as AJ mentioned, rethinks their business models, and reallocates their resources in a way to better inform, influence, chart, and apply cogent systems level response to this great economic transformation. Next slide. As we now know, the stakes are too high and the suffering too great to wait until mass layoffs occur and only then try to retrain, reabsorb, and redeploy millions of workers affected by a pandemic, a global financial crisis, or by longer-term capital labor substitution, so automation, the Internet of Things. In alignment with California's Regions Rising Together initiative, LAEDC believes that we must adopt a regionally centric, not top-down, plan of action across LA County and take this opportunity to support our talent systems and leverage the best of what LAEDC as an economic development corporation has to offer to lead inclusive economic growth. Next slide. We believe that if the pace of change outside our education and workforce systems continues to outpace the rate of change within these systems, it will be our most vulnerable individuals who depend on education and workforce systems for their economic advancement who will suffer the most. Regional business and labor partnerships are essential to meet both the supply and demand sides of this economic transformation that really supports resiliency, growth, dignity, equity, not as political punchlines, but as categorical socioeconomic imperatives. LAEDC and our partnership through the Center for a Competitive Workforce and our region's 19 community colleges have already begun this work. Funded by our region's strong workforce program funding, CCW's labor demand and supply analysis informs our strategic industry engagement through industry councils and regional program advisories, which then influences our transactional work through work-based learning, employment, and internship opportunities. To date, we have completed 15 reports that identifies the middle-scale occupations in demand in the LA Basin and compares them to the community college's supply. We take a look and see, are they overproducing, underproducing talent, or not even training for occupations in demand? Recently, LAEDC, CCW, and our community college regional directors of employer engagement partnered to host these 6 regional program advisories on your screen, where over 30 employers in our region's community colleges met to discuss current and future talent needs, including skills, competencies, technical knowledge, and pathways into internship and employment, all with the goal to collectively build a more competitive workforce and strengthen our local talent pipeline from our community colleges that serve over 500,000 learners, and of course, utilize technology to share that information out, which I'll get to. Next slide. Due to COVID-19, all but one meeting was hosted virtually. So we were thankful for Microsoft Teams and Zoom meetings and all these platforms that we could take advantage of. We had an increased participation in employers and increased participation in our community colleges. And our employers found great value from being able to attend one meeting to speak across 19 community colleges and to receive a digital lookbook that CCW provided that had information around the curriculum, the competencies these colleges were teaching to, average student size, timeline for recruitment, contact information for every school in attendance. Faculty shared that they would use the business intelligence they gathered to update their curriculum, to impact how they deliver curriculum and instruction, and take advantage of these opportunities to bring these regional partnerships home locally. In follow-up, CCW continues to engage these employers to provide virtual tours, guest speaking, internships, employment. For many of the employers, they had no idea that LA County had these regional consortia within education to really foster and to expedite this type of partnership. Next slide. One example is Takeda. Takeda is a patient-focused, values-based, R&D-driven global pharmaceutical company that also has that biomanufacturing side to it. And so through it, leveraging technology, leveraging regional employer engagement, we brought them along to match their competencies that they were looking for in terms of their job descriptions to the curriculum provided across our 19 community colleges, in addition to bringing them in to participate in local advisory committees. They hosted professional development opportunities for faculty, student tours, small group discussions, 15 department managers to meet with the students and faculty to have a deeper understanding of the challenges students are experiencing as they're applying, but also for faculty to understand the competencies, get samples of how curriculum could be taught, ideas for the ways in which they can increase diversity and access as well. And so it is a place where all of this happens. But to the next slide, we know that doing these things can be one-offs, and really to be more demand-driven, industry responsive, future forward, and adaptive, like AJ said, we need to connect in real time. So CCW continues to utilize a CRM platform to engage across our region's community colleges and employers in real time. So we use Launchpad's platform and we've customized it for the community colleges. Employers are able to share work-based learning, employment opportunities, and contact the community colleges to say, hey, we now have battery technology. We're having a hard time finding the workforce. Who has it? Community colleges can subscribe to peer groups based upon these industry interests. And so they're receiving all of the work-based learning, employment, industry gatherings related to the industry that they're teaching within. In addition, students can then be referred into the system to apply so we can track and have that good data that AJ had mentioned. And so next slide. Lastly, due to COVID-19, employers and workers in our region are facing challenges of epic proportions. And so during these unprecedented times, LAEDC also established an LA COVID-19 Community Connectory, which provides crucial resources for vulnerable residents, small businesses, and nonprofits. And it has three primary functions. So first, it engages LAEDC's award-winning staff of business assistants and layoff avoidance professionals to directly help employers overcome their challenges, retain staff, position for economic recovery, understand how to complete some of these applications, and perhaps even get a lead on new funding that should be coming out. Second, it spotlights a growing array of financial resources that directly support individuals, as well as programs to help business and community-based organizations, a lot of which are coming from our partners at the county, but also working with other groups like our Korean serving organizations, our Spanish-speaking serving organizations. And lastly, it provides frequent analysis and economic outlooks from LAEDC's Institute for Applied Economics to help all people in our region plan for economic recovery. And so getting the information out, the analysis is just critically important as our education partners are really looking to this data to make decisions on funding and strategies to retrain and redeploy the hundreds of thousands of folks unemployed in our region. And so all the services in the LA Community Connectory are provided at no charge, in keeping with LAEDC's nonprofit mission and true to our history of helping to serve over 240,000 direct jobs in LA County over the past 20 years.
Jessica, if our viewers would like to go to visit the Community Connectory, either to get resources or to see what it looks like for their jurisdiction, where can they go to do that?
Thank you. It's www.laedc.org/coronavirus.
Great. Well, I know that you guys have been putting out, I would just like to say for our viewers, LAEDC has really shown to be a leader for the region. They hold weekly Monday morning briefings with everyone to give a state of the economy. And so that's been very helpful to get the entire region on the same page as we combat the virus. So thank you.
Thanks, Carolyn.
So we'll ask you questions in a moment, but again, we have Jessica's contact information here, and I believe the slide deck will be downloadable. So we will get back to these questions. But thanks, Jessica. Now we're going to go ahead and turn it over to Luis Castañon from Goodwill of Southern California. They've done some real innovative work, both on the social enterprise side, social enterprise employment side, as well as convening our industry partners. So Luis, would love to have you speak to us now.
Yeah, and I apologize. I am sitting in a room here to COVID and my lights went off, but we're back on. We're back on. So thank you all and Carolyn for bringing us together. Really appreciate the time and the opportunity to speak about what we've been doing. So as Carolyn mentioned, right, I represent Goodwill Southern California, and I always like to start the conversation, anything related to Goodwill, just to ask people, what do they know about Goodwill? Because most of us know Goodwill because of our retail locations, and Goodwill actually is a workforce development training provider in the region, and actually throughout the country and in Canada as well. We actually use our retail locations to support our workforce and career development programs. And Goodwill Southern California is one of the longest Goodwill franchises in the nation. We were the fourth Goodwill to get started here in 1916. And since 1916, we've been doing the good work of training and career development in our region. And so why is Goodwill in this space? And the reason why we're in this space is, one, we are an employer. We're a regional employer. We cover 33,000 square miles in Southern California. So that includes Los Angeles County, Riverside, and San Bernardino. And what's really unique about that, and Carolyn mentioned it at the beginning of her presentation, is that there are a lot of cities, a lot of community colleges, a lot of workforce development boards, and we work with just about all of them throughout the whole region. So there's about 40 community colleges that we work with. There's over 160 cities in these three counties with their own legislators, their own priorities. And then there's 10 workforce development boards, and we work with just about all of them to work in workforce and career development. And for a long time, Goodwill was not engaged as heavily in the workforce system. We really used our funding from our retail stores to just provide services internally and not really engage within the system, because our focus has always been on unique populations, our veterans, uniquely able, our youth, our reentry populations, those experiencing homelessness, and our working poor. And honestly, that wasn't really the big priority of the workforce system prior to 2014, and with the revisions within the revision within the WIOA legislation. And so as the legislation changed, Goodwill found a great opportunity, and we found a great opportunity to engage in the system and to be more of an active partner and to really support this work. So if you go to the next slide, Carolyn, that'd be great. And so our focus with unique populations now has a good opportunity within the workforce system, since it has now a focus on populations with barriers. And Goodwill is now playing more of an active role, because we do cover that whole region. We're playing more of an active role to just try to see, how do we engage, how do we become an honest broker within this system, right? How can we bring both just our focus and our experience as an employer, but also our experience as a workforce and career development provider into these conversations, and really approach this conversation from both the demand side of the equation, but also on the supply side of the equation. And so for the last 5 years, one of the big differences and one of the big changes within our work has been to really engage stakeholders from across those different cities, from across those different regions, and across those different counties through different convenings and stakeholder engagements. And that really has led us to focus on different industry and different sectors in a much more focused way. One of those particular industries has been manufacturing. We, for the last 5 years, have really brought in our own resources and external resources to really just research the manufacturing industry and the sectors within that industry, to understand more about what their challenges are within the system, but also what are their long-term plans and goals. And we approach those conversations again from the demand side of the equation, but the supply side of the equation as well. And one of the things that we've been able to do through that is become the manufacturing sector intermediary for the manufacturing sector. And what we've learned through that work is that manufacturers were really interested in training and learning, but it was hard for their employees to go out into the community colleges or into those schools. And so they needed a solution for that. And one of those solutions was apprenticeships. So over the last 5 years, we've become an apprenticeship for our manufacturers, and we are the administrators of that apprenticeship. So it provides us the opportunity to provide administrative support to those companies that don't have those large budgets to provide in-house training, and we're able to support them in that way. And that does really becoming more of an intermediary, a connector within different industries, between different partners in that way. And lastly, our commitment has been around the long-term data, right? Just how do we ensure that this information keeps going and lives over time, and that it's actually shared among our partners and among the region. So that was one of our commitments that we made, and the reason that we actually signed up with Launchpad and use this platform, because we wanted to have a way that this information kept going beyond just individuals. We know that within the workforce system, we have a lot of changes. There's a lot of fluctuation between just business services professionals, and they changed jobs. And we wanted to make sure that that information lived within our systems, but that we could also share that information to our partners. And that commitment also was connected to how can a system also integrate with our retail operation systems, right? Are there systems that can be malleable over time, that can change as we evolve as well? Because there are state systems out there, but they're rigid in that way. And for us, what we've learned through our work, especially with manufacturing, is that we've needed to create new products within those systems, and the Launchpad platform has allowed us to be that responsive to those changes and create new products through that system that keeps us aligned with our industry and aligned with our partners as we move forward. So next slide. So one of the ways that we've been focused, and some of the companies that we've been focused on are listed here. And I'll say that the common denominator with all of this work has been really the intermediary work. And that intermediary work is really on that connector piece, right? How do we connect industry, education, partners, agencies, city governments all together to solve issues that are being experienced by our communities, by individuals, participants, but also our employers. And Northrop and all the folks that you see there on the screen, they had some really unique challenges that they were facing to their workforce development needs. And we were able to play that intermediary role and really use some of our discretionary funding to try to bring in industry experts and consultants to try to solve for some of these problems. And with Northrop, they had a huge hiring need. They needed to hire 5,000 people over the next 5 years. And it was really challenging for them to come up with curriculum and connect to the local community colleges and really figure out how do they manage that whole process of interviewing, of sourcing, and getting individuals into those jobs. And that's where really Goodwill came in and provided that opportunity and that management, that coordination, and that convening to be able to do that for Northrop Grumman, to the point that we were able to establish a customized training program with the local community college, with the local city there, and then as well with the America's Job Centers that were close by. And now we have a whole system set up that is focused in terms of just funneling individuals through that system. So we have a curriculum that spans over 8 weeks, and that provides a continuous pipeline for Northrop Grumman into those good paying jobs. And one of the great things about having Goodwill as a partner in this space is that because of our focus on unique populations, we are able to talk to Northrop and to some of these companies about hiring those unique populations, right? Hiring individuals who are experiencing homelessness, or hiring other populations that we work with, especially veterans within this work, because they have those skills. And so through that partnership, we also are able to have conversations with our business partners about those unique populations and how they might be able to be a good fit within those companies. So now we have had experience with providing individuals who are experiencing homeless, who are currently homeless, but are also working with Northrop Grumman. And now we have an effort with them to work on veterans programming as well. With Williams-Sonoma, one of the interesting things with them is that they have a different schedule than most of the companies that the state works with. And so one of the challenges with Williams-Sonoma was that they were in between training schedules with the state, and they needed to figure out how do they provide training for their staff as they're ramping up for the holiday season, and they really weren't able to work with the state in order to solve for that. So they brought us in, they asked for our support, and we were able to find funding for them to provide that gap funding in order to train their staff in their continuous improvement models. So we went into Williams-Sonoma, we provided that training, but through that training, we also started to talk to them about other opportunities that might be available to them, other career pathway models that we've implemented with similar companies that might provide some growth for their company. So they adopted our career pathways model, our upscaling matrix, which is part of that model, to really see where the gaps might be within their training and within the work that they're doing to continuously improve their staff. And through that work, we've now been able to have about 500 individuals who now have career pathway plans within that company and are showing positive growth and are showing engagement, genuine engagement at the job, so much so that they've been able to quantify the return on investment just based on the model that we implemented with them. Williams-Sonoma headquarters highlighted this effort with them, is now being shared among the Williams-Sonoma network. So that has been a lot of our work with these companies. Kaiser Permanente is the same thing. We started with them in the Inland Empire and in Riverside. We're able to create on-roads and connect different city government dollars along with federal dollars to create some training programs and just on-road programs into their jobs, and really focus on those low-income residents who are not getting that opportunity or just did not know how to apply for those positions. That program was successful, and we were able to then take that program and then start implementing it in Los Angeles County. And so that's really one of the unique aspects of our work, is that we're really able to take some of these opportunities from other regions, other areas, and then see how those opportunities and those models might be able to work elsewhere within the region, and really becoming sort of that regional convener and collaborator in Southern California. And then lastly, I would say the last thing around manufacturing is that through our manufacturers, one of the things that we've learned is that manufacturers are really interested in creating cultures of learning within their environments. A lot of those manufacturers that we talk to, small manufacturers, don't have the funding to be able to support full-on customized training programs. And so they really need access to resources. They need access to community colleges and other training providers. And what we've been able to do through that work is really bring in economic development consultants, not only to focus on the supply side of that piece, but to look at how are we helping you move towards your business plans, right? What are we doing that can help you meet the business plan so you can accomplish that growth that you're looking for, while at the same time doing the workforce development work that you're looking at, that you want to focus on. And so a lot of our manufacturing work has really focused more so on economic development more than anything. And that has led to positive growth within our companies, which then has opened up opportunities for workforce development training within those manufacturers. And through that work, we're also able to have those conversations about unique populations, about folks with reentry, with the justice system, justice involved. And other of the populations that we work with, we've also created a uniquely abled program, which is our folks with disabilities, specifically individuals on the high autism spectrum, because what we found out is that there were gaps within manufacturers, especially around CNC, computer numeric control, that they needed someone who was very task-oriented, very attention to detail. And we were able to see that those abilities were really connected to our folks with on the autism spectrum. And so we were able to create a customized training program with some of our community colleges, and now have replicated that program across the region. So some of the impacts about COVID-19 that have really affected and created new opportunities and challenges for us has just been the virtual services. Over the last few months, we've seen how our services have changed to appointment only. We are now conducting virtual recruitments. We're conducting virtual case management. And we've seen our numbers shift. In the beginning of the COVID, there was a lot of folks not engaging with our system, but over the last 2 months, we've had about close to 5,000 people who have engaged in virtual services with our employment centers across those 3 counties. And what we're noticing through that is that there's different types of gaps that are now appearing for our populations. For our individuals, the gaps come in just needing resources to pay for food, to pay for groceries, to pay for bills, to pay for rent. And so we've been working closely with our cities, with our state, to just try to figure out how do we get funding to those individuals to be able to meet those basic needs. For our companies, there's a lot of especially within our manufacturers, not knowing, right, how do we have these conversations? We're creating these cultures of learning and respect within these companies. And that also means having those conversations around what's happening in your families, what's happening with you, how are you dealing with stress, how are you dealing with trauma, and then how are you coming into the job, because you are an essential company and still trying to do the regular work, right? And what are those conversations? So we've been having regular meetings with our with our manufacturers. Actually, every Tuesday and Friday, we have meetings with them, and we talk about these practices, and we share practices. And within that network, they're sharing best practices that they're doing within their companies in order to keep individuals engaged, but also make sure that they're meeting their long-term outcomes and goals. And so a lot of this work, as I mentioned, has been really focused on intermediary, on connecting the dots, and really making sure that we understand all of the different things that are going on within our region, and trying to connect those efforts to what the needs are of our employers, but also the needs of our individuals, while at the same time making sure that we are advocating for our unique populations, those individuals that oftentimes get left out of some of these efforts. We're making sure that that is front and center for us as we engage within this work, and then making sure that in the long term, that we have this data, that we have this information, and that we're really using technology to advance this effort, not just for today, but also into the future.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. That was very helpful. We'll get a little bit more into the partnership opportunities there in our question. But I want to make sure we do have time for questions, as I know really want to tie all this together. So Dr. Medina, we're going to go ahead and move to you about how the community college system, the adult school, our educational institutions are so instrumental in making these partnerships work. So I turn to you.
Thank you so much. It is a pleasure to be part of the panel of the experts that we are participating in today. I wanted to share with you two major programs that we have at City of Pomona. Caroline, may we please have the next slide, please?
Yep.
We have something that came about a year and a half ago that we did not believe it would happen. It was leveraging partnerships. So it was the work permits protocol that changed to meet the demand of the employers, students, parents, and the teachers for work experience. Due to COVID-19, we were not able to have the employer sign. We were not able to have the teacher sign. So we created an opportunity where we got approval by the California Department of Education to have an electronic signature and then follow it up with a wet signature. We have seen our work permits increase dramatically since COVID-19. Usually between April and May, we have about 15 to 20 work permits that we have, but due to the economic crisis combined with the medical crisis that we're facing, we now have over 120 work permits that have been requested, where students, mind you, parents are being laid off, so now the students high school students need to step up. Our district serves approximately 24,000 students, and we are in a very challenged community for most of the district. 90 to 92% of our students are free or reduced lunch, and in some areas it could be up to 99%. We were able to successfully create this work permit and work experience classes, that in the fall, the work experience classes will be articulated with Rio Hondo College. And I have to have a shout out to Monique Cardenas, who has been doing all the work on this. It took us 3 years to be able to get to this point. Now, so a student is able to be working, making money, receive elective credits for graduation, and if eligible, be able to articulate the courses to any community college in the state of California. So that's something that COVID-19 pushed us to do. Our next item, the second item that I wanted to speak to you, is the first nonprofit fabrication and installation center in the world that will provide solar panels and installation of panels to our low income parents at no cost, or low income community. It is through the Community Housing Energy Retrofit Program. And if it wasn't for the partnerships with the Workforce Investment Board and the American Job Centers of California, this would not be able to happen. Our workforce development will be San Antonio ROP and the Pomona Unified Adult School. One of the wonderful things about this partnership is that we have Harvey Mudd College, which is a world-renowned institution that will be providing all the scientific materials regarding the state-of-the-art solar panels. The city of Pomona has welcomed the opportunity. Pomona Unified School District and San Antonio RP will be the workforce development agency, and the American Job Centers of California will provide the opportunities to refer individuals to that training opportunity. I want to thank Maritza Dubey, who is the interim executive director, and Michael Thomas, who have been there since the get-go, providing us the support that we needed to move this project forward. Next slide, Carolyn, please. This was the, one back. This was the headline at the Student Life, which is the newspaper for the Claremont colleges. It states Harvey Mudd College students to design world first nonprofit solar panel factory. Believe it or not, this was in March 2019. 2 weeks ago, Pomona Unified School District and SHRP were able to come to an agreement. So now we have the tenant improvements coming up, and we have the equipment being delivered to that factory, which will be at the hub of Pomona Unified School District, the city of Pomona, and very near to Claremont, the city of Claremont. Next slide, please. It's exciting to see that we have been, this project has been highlighted in many respected publications like the Los Angeles Business Journal and other journals, in which we were able to show what the work we're doing with our partners, as well as, if you see the right side of this slide, it shows a child saying that we were able to succeed, which was a multi-million dollar, over $1 million allocation that was allocated in the governor's state budget for the 2019-2020. And so we have reached an apex, a point in which this program is now part of the state funding cycle. Next slide, please. Wanted to share with you about San Antonio Regional Occupational Program. We've had incredible partnerships. It's a joint powers of authority between Pomona Unified School District and Bonita. In 2018, we were the recipients of the South Bay Workforce Investment Board Placement Award for Certified Nurses Assistant. And in 2016, we were the recipients of the South Bay Workforce Board for Armed Security Guard. We hope, it is our intent to be a recipient in 2020 or 2021 for the placement award in solar panel fabrication and placement positions that we will be able to provide for this project. Next slide, please. With that, this shows you the partnerships that we have, some of the partnerships that we have acquired over time. It is what our partnership with the College Career and Workforce Development Task Force. We started about 10, 11 years ago, and we were 3-4 partners in the room. Today, we have over 300 active emails in our distribution, and we meet on the monthly basis on the first Thursday of the month at 9:30, which now we will have multiple guest speakers that come in and give us a brief presentation of the local, regional, and state dynamics. Last time we had the interim executive director of the Workforce Investment Board, Maritza Dubé, and then previous to that, we have our superintendent of schools. For the August, we have confirmation for the president of our local community college, Dr. William Scroggins, which is Mount SAC, president and CEO. And we also have confirmation for September for Superintendent Martinez, Superintendent of Pomona Unified School District. And in October, we have confirmation for the City of Pomona mayor. So it's been moving along. It is the partnerships that make the synergy happen. Alone, we could not be doing this. And so we're really excited to continue developing partnerships. And what's interesting is the more partnerships you develop, the more people, the more institutions, the more organizations, the more agencies that want to partner with you. But I want to make clear that without the support or the Workforce Development, Aging, and Community Services of LA County and the Workforce Investment Board and the American Jobs of California and other partners, we would not be able to have these excellent programs to our community who needs it very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Medina. Very much appreciate that. I think the central takeaway here always is partnerships and supporting each other. And I think another point that you touched on was equity and making sure that we're reaching out to our local communities. We're growing our own with respect to the development, not only on the business side, but then when we're getting our workers employed there. So thanks so much for highlighting that. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Richard, who's rounding up the speakers to talk a little bit about how we've brought together, we at WEDAX, I should say, have brought together many of these different programs and tenets of what we've discussed. And then I'll hopefully have time for a few questions for all of you. So thanks so much. And Richard, take it away.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Carolyn, for assembling this fine panel. I'm honored to be on it. And thank you to my colleagues for sharing all that great information. I think your presentations touched on a lot of themes that I'm going to echo here, but also try to share the unique perspective of LA County. And so starting here, I did want to just touch again on kind of the landscape that we're operating in. I know Carolyn and my colleagues did a fantastic job kind of talking about our region, but just wanted to emphasize just how large and diverse our region is, and particularly the County of Los Angeles, where we have 37 departments. We serve over 10 million individuals as the county's workforce development department. And there are just a ton of employers and businesses, actually over 450,000 in our region. And so with that comes, a lot of diversity, which we're really proud of, and just a lot of activity in many different industry clusters that I know maybe potentially those not from LA might not think about. I know myself, not being from the region, when you think of Los Angeles, you think of the entertainment industry that's thriving, you think of Hollywood, but people sometimes forget our thriving aerospace industry, our activity in trade and logistics, as we have some of the biggest ports operating in the entire country, and transport tons and tons of cargo through the port of Long Beach. People also forget our thriving healthcare industry and then our burgeoning bioscience industry. So there's a lot of activity in Los Angeles County, thousands of employers, a wealth of resources in terms of multiple different agencies, as you see on this panel, kind of really working to spur economic and workforce development. And so that makes it a very exciting landscape. But then what we've noticed, if you look at my kind of last 2 points on this page, this can be sometimes very daunting and difficult for a business who's just starting out in LA County to kind of really identify all the resources at their disposal, as sometimes there's a lack of kind of centralized access point to accessing those services. Sometimes when there's so many options, you don't even know where to begin. And so that's kind of the landscape of LA County. And that's really why we've decided and we've worked hard to take a regional approach to our business engagement strategy. And you've heard a lot of kind of the partnerships that we and the work that has been done in the region. But I kind of wanted to distill, from LA County's point of view, kind of 5 themes that drive our business engagement strategy, and you'll hear them come up, I'm sure, and when we go into the Q&A portion, and then for the remainder of my presentation, I'll kind of hit on those themes again. But starting off, we like to call our kind of regional business engagement approach a no wrong door approach to serving businesses. So again, I mentioned there are 37 departments in LA County. We have over 16 departments specifically that provide business services in some form or fashion to the business community, from business licenses to loans, and then obviously to workforce development services that our department provides. And so we really noticed in kind of doing our work that all of those departments weren't talking and weren't collaborating to kind of the level that we thought would be most effective. And we wanted to make sure that if, a business, for example, went to our Department of Regional Planning to obtain, advice or counseling on how to receive a permit or where to locate their business, whether it was going to be in the appropriate zone or not. And for example, they had a question about workforce needs or how to access loans. We thought it would be very important to enable our staff to be able to answer those questions and refer that business to the appropriate resources. And then similarly, when we interact with businesses through our 19 job centers located across the county, we really wanted to empower our staff to really have the information to be able to direct businesses to not only workforce services, but to the other services offered across the county. So really, a no wrong door, no matter where they started in the county. We wanted to kind of emphasize that they had a relationship with the county as a whole and make it as easy as possible for them to access all of the services that the county has to offer. Partnerships and collaboration. We have, a bunch of partners throughout the region, and particularly some really strong partners on this panel. Our partners at LAEDC, our partners at Launchpad, our partners at Goodwill. We work closely together to really take a holistic approach to serving our business community and connecting them to the resources they need to strive and grow. And then also making sure that our businesses have the resources they need to connect to a thriving workforce and talent pool that we have here in LA County. I'll touch on these other themes kind of in the interest of time, but equity is obviously something that we really care about. We want to serve businesses that are most in need. 90% of our businesses within LA County are small businesses, and so we kind of just want to make sure that we're serving them, but then also in terms of providing our workforce with training and opportunities, we want to make sure we're also serving those with the most barriers to employment. So that includes our reentry population, our individuals experiencing homelessness, veterans, and the priority populations defined in WIOA and by our Board of Supervisors. And then you heard a little bit about our partnership earlier with Launchpad. That has been really successful for us in being able to deploy programs and engage our businesses and track our business engagement activities across the county. I'll share more about that later. And then one point that maybe hasn't been touched on in an elaborate way has been kind of something we find really important in the county, and that's kind of getting buy-in from local elected officials. We have 5 boards of supervisors, elected board of supervisors within the county. We have a mayor in Los Angeles, and we have 88 cities within the county, and it's really been helpful to kind of partner with local elected officials to bring large employers, large and small employers to the table and kind of explain to them the suite of services that we have to offer. Next slide. And so in terms of kind of all the activities that we do around business engagement, I'm just going to run through this and highlight a few. So layoff aversion, something you all know about, and our business technical assistance and rapid response services. Funding, we have been able to deploy funding to our employers and businesses through different grant programs. I'll touch on that a little bit later. I know that AJ touched on that in the Launchpad presentation. And then obviously with COVID hitting, it really caused us to need to change the way that we deliver services. And we really wanted to be sure that in a time of crisis when our businesses really needed us, they knew about the services we offered, and we could connect them easily to other services. So we essentially transitioned all of our services to a virtual format. On a weekly basis, we've been having business town halls, and we set up a disaster help center, which I'll talk about a little bit more. And then really outreach, rapid reemployment, and advocacy at the state level, at the federal level, are other kind of priorities in the way that we focus our economic development activities and our business engagement activities across the county. And I'll get more into that in some of the future slides. So, as we discussed earlier, through a strong partnership with our Launchpad technology partners, and as well as the economic development or the employment development department of the state, and then our partners at the Robert Enterprise Development Fund, we were able to deploy $500,000 of grant funds to businesses across the county, approximately 59 of them, and we're really proud and happy to report that 39 of them were minority-owned, women-owned, or veteran-owned. And so that was just an incredible accomplishment, something that as a workforce development agency, you don't really see them deploying kind of grant programs to businesses quite frequently, but we're really proud that we were able to quickly deploy those funds to the businesses in need. As you can see, we deployed we averted 311 layoffs, and we retained over 1.5 million in revenue, but in kind of highlighting how business engagement can be improved by technology. When we received this funding from EDD, the 500,000, we quickly had to figure out how we were going to get the money out, how we were going to create an application portal so that businesses could apply, how we were going to send messages to the thousands of businesses that were trying to receive these funds. And so Launchpad, as we alluded to earlier, really were strong partners, helped us develop this technology, helped us capture the information from the businesses, helped us communicate to the thousands of businesses that were attempting to apply for this funding. And so we really thank Launchpad for that strong partnership. Next slide. And then going on to partnerships, in partnership with our Department of Consumer and Business Affairs in LA County, we were able to quickly set up a disaster help center, which was really a very powerful resources for businesses and workers all across the county who were looking for guidance on the safer at home orders, looking for guidance for unemployment, or trying to figure out which grant programs or loan programs were available across the county. And so we set this up, and as you can see, received thousands of calls, but also we're able to kind of log the business information, worker information in our Launchpad system to continually be able to communicate with those that reached out to us for assistance, and really provide resources to those that really needed it during these last few months, where it was really critical that we had a centralized mechanism to communicate with our community and get that information. Next slide. And again, another way that we've kind of leveraged technology amid COVID recently has been that we've been hosting a series of virtual business town halls. And I think particularly what's important to note is that as a workforce agency, and as an entity that delivers kind of the services of WIOA, not all of the community knew about all the benefits in the suite of services offered through the public workforce system, such as on-the-job training or incumbent worker training, and some of our abilities to kind of customize training programs with employers. And so through these virtual town halls, we've actually been able to touch over 1,500 individuals and businesses throughout the county and share with them resources about our services and really raise the awareness of the public workforce system and all that it has to offer. And not only that, we've been able to kind of share with our business community the different service and programs that are offered throughout the entire county. And then I wanted to highlight, two really innovative partnerships that have kind of developed over the last few months. A lot of employers were, unfortunately laying off workers during this time, but we've actually had success in LA County placing workers, and particularly through our partnership with Northrop Grumman, we've been able to host virtual recruitments where we've actually hired 362 individuals, 69 of which have been veterans. And you can see the wage down there, $23 an hour, impressive wages. So it's really, that's kind of a testament to our ability to quickly adapt virtually. And then also just an example of a strong partnership with a large employer in our region, and a strong partnership with our community college system, who we were able to partner with. And really train folks to get them prepared for these opportunities. And then you see Proterra on the bottom right of your screen. They're an electric bus manufacturer in our region, and they are growing rapidly as we transition towards a more green economy. And we've been able to partner with them to place a handfuls of individuals, particularly with barriers to employment, at their company. And so that's still progressing. But wanted to highlight those two partnerships really as ways that we've continued to engage our employers and develop those pipelines and pathways to employment for our populations with multiple barriers to employment. So that was a quick overview. I'm happy to answer more questions when we get into this Q&A, but here, if you go back to that screen, you can reach out to us at this email, and that goes to kind of the key members on our team, and we can answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. So I do want to give us some time to get into some of the questions. I've stopped screen sharing, so you can now see all of our panelists. We really appreciate that. And I think there's some common themes that we've heard throughout this presentation. It's really needing to serve businesses as a customer of the workforce system, and how do we effectively determine where are the gaps before we embark upon any of these educational or training programs, and then also how are we leveraging our partners with Launchpad and CRM systems to specifically target the right businesses. So I think my first question would be for AJ, for Abraham. How are you, like, as someone who's coming from the workforce system and you designing, obviously you mentioned at the beginning that you did business engagement, how did you design Launchpad to address any gaps that you were seeing to specifically reach out to the right employers, or at least more effectively reach out to employers? Like, how did you take your experience to build Launchpad to what it is now?
Yeah, Carolyn, great question, and great presentations from all the panelists, by the way. Prior to workforce development, I came from the private sector, worked in, both employment and staffing and business development. So these were tools that I saw that were used in the private sector and used very effectively. So when I got introduced into workforce development back in, I'm going to age myself, but 2008, 2009, we saw that there was just a huge gap in the way the public sector, government, nonprofits, right, engage businesses. Very old school, right? I think the term is, government nonprofits tend to be 10 years behind the technology curve compared to your customers, the business community. So I think that was just apparent. So we decided we wanted to solve that problem, have better collaboration, have better tracking. So we actually built the first version of Launchpad to do that. Now fast forwarding 10 years, I mean, these technologies are super accessible. And going beyond, the gap then was just data tracking. The gap now is how do you engage with your customer digitally, right? What used to be the water cooler in your office is now LinkedIn, right? How are you connecting with that business customer at Northrop Grumman or at, Tesla or at SpaceX or whatever, right? They're on LinkedIn, they're in, the digital world. So now we're trying to help, customers get there to be able to engage with the, employer and business community. So it's changed over the past few years, I would say.
Thank you so much, AJ. Appreciate that. And obviously having someone that has firsthand experience of reaching businesses, I think very important in developing some of these tools. On that same vein, I want to ask Luis, obviously we work very closely with Goodwill. Full disclosure, Goodwill is one of our partners in our public workforce system that we administer throughout the county. And Luis clearly mentioned several other counties that Goodwill works in. But now, since COVID has occurred, I think we're at a unique point in our trajectory to build credibility with our businesses, because now I think, like we had mentioned, or like Richard showed on the screen, we have more businesses than ever coming to us. How can we work together to build credibility as a workforce system for our business partners that are now maybe coming to us for the first time saying, hey, can you help me? How have you worked at Goodwill to really build credibility as a credible partner? And maybe you can speak to manufacturing specifically.
Yeah, great question. I think for us, the success that we've seen is engaging businesses around their business plans, right? What are you in need of that will help you meet or even stay competitive within your actual industry? And sometimes that conversation is not workforce development, right? Sometimes that conversation is access to capital or access to other credits or just navigating the bureaucratic systems, right? Getting permits and things like that. And I think that's been one of the really successful ways that we've engaged manufacturers, is really just asking them, how can we help you be competitive? And once we've understood that, once we understand your business model, your business plan, and we're not the experts in that, right? So how can we bring resources to bring experts who can actually have those conversations with you about how do you remain competitive? And seeing that we're actually genuinely interested in just your growth, and then start talking about the other things, then start talking about continuous improvements, start talking about cultures of learning, special populations, workforce development, right? The traditional things that we do around workforce development comes sort of after for us. And that's really been the way that we've engaged our manufacturers, is really starting with that and then giving them that information. I think early on in our conversations, it was really, there were really a lot of conversations that our employers wanted to have around just what the failures of the educational system were. And it also took some educating on our end to let them know, well, this is the reason why the failures happen, right? Here's some of the legislative pieces that might have caused some of the gaps and why you don't have the workshop or the automotive courses or those construction courses in those high schools anymore because of these changes. And I think just coming to a common ground in that way really helped us be successful. But at the core of it is really coming to manufacturers, just trying to see how we can help them be competitive within the region.
Thank you, Luis, so much. And speaking of our educational partners, I think that it is really that sweet spot between marrying, the needs of the employer and showing the employer that we do have a credible training program. We do have a great community college and adult school system, and actually we can build something out specifically for you. And so, Dr. Medina, I know that you've been working over the last several years on your CHIRP program, trying to bring clean energy to our region and bring it at a scalable, bring a model that's scalable so that we can increase the number of certified CHIRP partners across the region. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you identified this need as an educational provider? You identified this need, that was missing in the new green economy, and why you decided to get involved and how you've built out that curriculum, especially with an equity lens. I think we've talked a little bit about how you're strategically reaching out to local communities. Can you talk to us a little bit about why you designed the program and how equity weaved into that?
Yes. One of the biggest challenges that we had with the solar energy is that some of the sectors in our economy or households could afford it, while the poor and challenged socioeconomically could not afford it. So where is that equilibrium where you're able to bring in that opportunity to those individuals that it's not their top priority because they have other priorities to meet to handle their family necessities. So the partnership that we established was, how do you balance the education and the economy to bring it to a population that is most needy? So not only are we going to be able to provide low cost or free solar panels when it comes to installing them at their home, which will save them money on their monthly energy bill, which will free up money for other purposes, which most likely will stimulate the local economy where they live. But also, where is that balance when it comes to the economy? So we're able to provide an opportunity for them to take advantage of the economical aspect of this opportunity, as well as the education, because we will be providing the training with the partnership with the Pomona Valley Americans Job Centers of California through the Workforce Development Board, our Workforce Development, Aging and Community Services Division of LA County. So if you not only have the opportunity to save money with solar energy at your home, but you're also going to have an opportunity that will lead to employment in a high demand sector in the future. Our next steps are, what partnerships do we need to establish to create a pre-apprenticeship opportunity for the high school and young adults so that they're able to enter into an apprenticeship opportunity in the many unions that provide this service at the different sectors in our economy. So that's the logic behind it. It has not been easy. It's been a lot of work, but it's been most rewarding when you know that your community is not only benefiting from making money in a job through a training and placement in the workplace, but also going home and saving money for their energy costs through solar energy.
Yes, Dr. Medina, thank you so much, for all of your work that you're doing there, and the fact that you went to the state legislature and were able to get funding specifically for your program, I think speaks a lot to the priorities of our current administration in California. You mentioned apprenticeship, you mentioned the green economy. I think that it's our hope that as a region and coming together, we can help you elevate this as a model, because we know that our governor wants more apprenticeship pathways into middle income careers for individuals that are living in LA County. We have a lot of individuals on an hourly wage making at minimum wage. And so this affords good job opportunities and also clean energy. So we really appreciate all of the work that you're doing there. And then speaking about apprenticeships and meeting a need, Jessica, you at LAEDC have been working with us and working really across the region to convene industry partners for quite a long time. I mean, LAEDC is seen as a convener and a thought leader in the space of industry. Can you talk to us about how you've identified which industries in the county have been the most useful to get together around the table and talk about furthering their industry? And then maybe you talk a little bit about how, in light of COVID, you've been working at LAEDC to target certain industry partnerships. How do we think that as we come out of the post-COVID economy, we need to be working better with industry, and specifically which industries?
Sure. So generally speaking, all industries, but in terms of LAEDC, our approach is really looking at our export-oriented or traded. So aerospace, advanced transportation, bio, let's see what else, digital media and entertainment. And the thought behind it is really they have positive ripple effects into our economy. So when we have, let's say, Sony Studios in Culver City, there's then an outpour of restaurants and hotels and services around them that will come up, and they have these positive growth effects in our community. And we're really seeing it in COVID 19 and the effect of when folks aren't working there and you don't have all these people going there. No one's going to the restaurants and to the coffee shops, et cetera. So that's kind of our strategy. So we host these industry councils, we bring industry together, and exactly to Dr. Medina, Luis's point, Dr. Luis Castagnon's point, and AJ, really it's the comprehensive needs around industry. So you can't separate the land use from the workforce, from the policy. It's a comprehensive look. And I think that's what we see. With this fast-paced changing economy, we need all the partners at the table. And I think it's critical, and I think it's what every partner here gets, is that an employer wants to come and have one conversation, not repeat the conversation again and again and again. And so that's a big part of it. And now that we've had this shift in our economy, we, with WEDAX, just recently convened, actually this week, a series of industry gatherings where we took small, medium, and large companies in aerospace, healthcare, trade and logistics, and infrastructure to talk about their growth. And so we're fortunate as LAEDC to have an institute for applied economics, so it's definitely driven by the data, but this is also a data set that no one's ever seen before. It changes, and so you're taking it, you're doing your analysis, and you're going forth, but it has to come with industry validation. So gathering your industry folks to tell us, we just heard from multiple aerospace companies that, which is a huge, huge sector for our region, they didn't do layoffs. We talked to a whole nother region, they talked about a ton of layoffs. And so what we're seeing is that, yes, be data driven, but of course validate that with your industry, understand their timelines. We talked about the Internet of Things, automation, COVID. Bringing those industry partners together is essential.
Thank you so much, Jessica, and you're absolutely right. I think the data, obviously this is about data-driven decision-making, but at a certain point, the data can only take us so far, and that's why having those credible relationships with industry is important. And I think, you know, for other regions around the country who are listening to us, it's pretty instrumental to have this regional economic development corporation like an LAEDC. Of course, the smaller EDCs also very relevant for the more local communities, but having LAEDC there as a convener and also as a source of information and data, very, very key for all of us, I think, at this table. And speaking of having multiple conversations multiple times, businesses get a lot of fatigue from that. Richard, maybe you can talk to us a little bit about why the county has thought it might be a good idea to take this no wrong door approach to business engagement in order to streamline the process for businesses in interacting with government. To Jessica's point about how you can't just look at workforce in a vacuum. Why have you decided to work on a business solutions portal, and how is that important to the overall strategy that the county has undertaken?
Absolutely. No, thank you for the question. And Jessica's absolutely correct. You know, we want to take a regional approach, and really when we, as the public sector, go forth and interact with businesses, we want to be able to really discuss their wide range of needs and not have them, you know, go to one place for one piece of information and another for another piece of information. So that's kind of the driving basis behind our idea at LA County, and specifically our workforce development department, to create what we call a business solutions portfolio. And so taking that no wrong door approach, again, that I discussed a little earlier, you know, we just realized that a lot of our staff located across the county at our different AJCCs, which are our job centers. We have about 19 of them in LA County. And in addition to our staff located at the different regional offices of our partner departments that serve businesses, just didn't have a solid grasp or understanding of all of the services offered by the county. And so I mentioned earlier, there are over 16 departments that serve businesses in the county. And so we decided there was a need for all of that information, the wealth of information, not only that the county has to offer, but our partners at LAEDC and our partners at other organizations in the county. There was a need to have that all in one place, in a centralized location. And there was a need to kind of educate and train our staff that are engaging with businesses every day on kind of the wealth of services and options that a business has. We didn't expect kind of our staff to become experts on all the various services, but we wanted to provide an opportunity, training for our staff to kind of learn and have a general understanding of all of the different services and resources available across the county. And so we created something that we called a business solutions portfolio, and essentially has streamlined, condensed, easy to understand information regarding all of the services offered at our 16 county departments, services offered at our partners, by our partners at LAEDC, and then some of our partners at Goodwill and other entities. We also kind of partnered with the Small Business Administration to obtain some information on their business technical assistance and loan programs. And we compiled into one beautiful document that we trained staff across the county on, and we also put on the main County of Los Angeles website for review and as a resource for the business community, so that essentially, again, a business could have just an easier experience learning about and accessing the various services that we have in the county, and our staff was equipped to really have those conversations and direct businesses to the right location. And so right now, if you go to the county's website, you'll see the business solutions portfolio, and there's we've been engaged in additional conversations about making that somewhat of a static resource more available in a virtual automated portal-like format. And of course, we've engaged in some preliminary conversations with our partners at Launchpad to see how they can be involved. And really, we're just trying to really make the experience easy for businesses when they're trying to navigate the county, because we ultimately just want to foster their growth and success. Because if they're growing and succeeding, then they're going to hire and be equipped to hire more of our workforce.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you. Actually, Richard, I think that segues into my last question. I know we're running a little tight on time, so I just want to put out this one last question to the group, but would love to continue this conversation because I think there have been a lot of insights. But really, to your point about how you're putting everything in one place to make it easier for our businesses, how have we made it easier for our businesses or engaged our businesses to serve unique populations? So Luis talked a little bit about that in his presentation, but can anyone point to any specific examples of how you've leveraged technology or leveraged your business engagement to reach a specific subset of the population, whether it's getting individuals with criminal backgrounds employed or getting homeless individuals employed, former foster youth veterans, et cetera? Could anyone talk about how you might have an example of that?
I can chime in here a little bit on that. And I think for us, it's just really been about having that information, right? And just working with Launchpad and with WEDAX on this is just collecting information about which employers actually are hiring individuals who are experiencing homelessness, or employers who have hired individuals with backgrounds before, and really being able to go to that data or go to those employers in our database. And so that's actually been really, I think, successful for us, is just keeping track of that information. Because I think prior to just having a central CRM, we really went by relationships, right? If a business services representative had a relationship with a company and they were able to place an individual there who had a background, that relationship or even that knowledge went with that individual when they left. And now we're being much more intentional about just asking that question and making sure that we're getting an answer from employers, and that we're keeping that information internally, so that when we do have a question about what are our just as Evolve friendly employers, we can go to a list and say, here are all the employers that we can reach out to for those particular topics, right? And then the other piece, especially because in Los Angeles we've had such challenges with homelessness for a long time. And I think one of the things that we've found really interesting is that employers want to engage in these conversations, but oftentimes they don't know what that entry point is. They don't know who they should go to. If they should go to the city, the county, local legislators, they just really have no idea what's the entry point for them in order to start engaging in conversations. And so just really presenting this information to employers, but then also giving them an option of how they can engage and making sure that those options are light touch to heavy touch, right? Those light touch things that they can do, which is very simple, just about exposing individuals who might have not traditionally gotten into those companies by just letting them know what those companies are about, providing career pathway trees or lattices, right? So that they know what those options are. But at the core of it is just sharing that information with employers and knowing that employers want to engage, but oftentimes don't know what is that entry point for them.
Thank you so much, Luis. And I'm afraid that we are pretty well out of time because we had so much great information. I think that the theme of today really has been begin with the end in mind. And so what do we mean by that? Make sure that we are engaging our employers first, not presupposing to know what any of them need. Trust but validate. So we trust the data, but then we validate by going to the employer and figuring out through a one-on-one conversation, what do you need? And then just increasing efficiencies for our employers, because the more that they are seeing, us in workforce as a trusted partner, the more likely it is that they're going to come back again and again. And I think having those technological tools really makes our job much easier and much more effective. So I hope that this is the first of several discussions that we have on this topic as we continue to come together as a region. I know that COVID has brought us all closer together while still staying distant. So we hope that that great work continues. And I really want to thank all of you for being with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all
Thank
so
you.
much.
Everyone.